All stations, this is Sailing Traleen.
Cheers. Welcome back to Sailing Traleen. After last week's cri de coeur, cry of the heart about the disaster which has befallen Traleen and my scheduling, this week's video is going to be more about the recovery process and what I'm going to be doing in the interim. As I film this, I don't exactly know, but what I do know is that there's no excuse for the boat to be in a poor state. There's no excuse for it to be untidy. Frankly, there's no excuse, even though the rigging's all going to be coming out, there's no excuse for any untidiness on the deck. So the first thing that I'm going to do is have a massive tidy up and get the boat shipshape in Bristol fashion, as we say here in the UK. One other thing is that there's lots of ongoing paperwork, loads and loads and loads, as a result of the incident with the mast. There's letters to my insurers flying backwards and forwards. There's information for the boatyard's insurers flying backwards and forwards, and it's just kind of inevitable that there's an awful lot of admin. There's also a serious thinking going on about, well, if we have to change the mast, then are there any things that we actually want to change before the new one goes in, and is there any servicing that needs to be done when the mast's out? I don't think there is, because obviously it was only out last year, but there's always that possibility, and it's important to stage that sort of work as well. So there's a lot of thinking going along, and there's a lot of paperwork going on, and that's frustrating, because I'd much rather be transiting the Caledonian Canal and heading out for a workup, but that is unfortunately going to be delayed. Good morning from Sailing Traleen. The noise you can hear in the background is the fan, which is keeping the boat habitable. It's snowing outside and it's not very photogenic, but it is very cold, so I don't think that I'm going to be working outside on deck today, but I have got some jobs which I need to do inside. One of the things that this fandangle with a broken mast is giving me is a chance to reduce the number of operational defects, so to speak, that Traleen is carrying. Lots of them are very, very minor. One of the things I fixed yesterday, for example, was putting some tiny rubber bumpers onto a hatch opening. So it's tiny things like that which need an hour here or an hour there, and just haven't really had the time to fix them while I was sailing last year. So I'm going to be attacking that list, and this morning I'm going to be working down a hole on the bilge pump. In the first instance I did some work even further down the hole, which I can't show you because it's a dark, dingy troll hole, but the work that I can show you shortly is I'm going to be connecting up a terminal strip to allow the connections to be made in a more tidy way, so that I can then wire in a switch which will allow me to disengage the auto bilge pump. So Traleen has a pump which I can run manually, or I can switch to auto, and when it's in auto it will keep the boat empty of water, which is fantastic and normally what you want. But sometimes the auto bilge pump kicks in and in and in and in every 5 seconds or every 30 seconds, perhaps because there's water coming over the deck and there's a little bit of water finding its way down through the lockers, which is to be expected, and then the bilge pump fires, and that takes quite a lot of electricity over 24 hours. So in those times it's more efficient to switch the bilge pump to manual and run it every hour or so. And yes, I know I would prefer to have the boat perfectly watertight, but at the moment the cabin is perfectly watertight, and that's a big win, and I'm prepared to settle for that, because the lockers are a much more complicated problem. So the first thing we need to do is serially disconnect each of these wires, slide a piece of heat shrink all the way down into the troll hole over an already waterproofed butt connector which extended these lines, and then we will be able to heat shrink that on. Self-adhesive heat shrink is a brilliant tool which improves the waterproofness of connections by shrinking down onto them and melting a layer of waterproof glue around them. Thermal label makers, which themselves can print out onto heat shrink, are a lifesaver, although the print isn't very oil resistant, which is often an issue around engines and such like. One of this week's other issues has been attending to a series of locker doors that have lost their retaining
latch, and also in some cases their retaining backstop. I found that by using some masking tape to seal up the holes in the floorboards of Trelline, I can save myself a lot, clear up and prevent sawdust ending up in the bilge where I don't really want it, because it can clog pumps and such like. The work is very straightforward, just a matter of screwing and gluing a landing for the door back onto the hatch, and then cutting in a latch for the new shiny pull latch, which I'm standardising Trelline onto.
Sailing Trelline round Britain and Ireland is raising funds for the Andrew Castle Foundation, the sailing charity helping disabled people reach maximum independence on the water. Could you help them mentor and develop more disabled people? Please consider donating to my crowdfunder, 100% of which goes directly to the foundation. I know that times are tough right now, but every gift, however small, helps. Let's help more disabled people achieve the fantastic results I have.
That's all from Sailing Trelline this week. Next week I'm hoping that I will be able to show you a bit more progress on rectifying the mast situation. We're anticipating that at some point next week the mast will be coming out, and the exciting process of measuring up to make sure that a new mast matches the old mast will begin.
Sailing Trelline, out.